There may be no pair of shoes that's more instantly recognizable than the Adidas Sambas. These shoes were created all the way back in 1949 and had a thin rubber sole in order to give players more traction on hard and icy surfaces. And since then, the Sambas have evolved over time for use in both futsal and for playing in the street. But they're also just a popular lifestyle shoe, and a lot of people just buy them because of the way that they look. But are Sambas actually good for playing football in? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. So I've had this pair of Sambas for over 4 years, as you can tell by all of the wear and tear, and they have seen quite a few games on my end. I'm going to be covering the design, the fit, the durability, as well as what they're actually like to play in. And if you are interested in picking up a pair of these shoes, I'll leave a link in the description where you can find them online. So let's get straight into it by talking about the design of the Sambas. So as I mentioned, these shoes have been around for over 70 years, and the design for the most part has stayed the same every single year. And what you're going to notice immediately with these shoes is they're going to have a leather material all throughout the midfoot, as well as the iconic 3 stripes of Adidas on both sides of the shoe, and then you're going to finish off with a suede toe box at the front of the shoe. It's a really iconic design, it's stayed the same for so long, and it really separates it from almost any other shoe in this category. The Sambas also have a traditional lacing system here that offers a lot of lockdown. The laces are pretty casual, I'd say. They're wide, and they're not as modern as you would find on a lot of other current indoor models. You also have a pretty long tongue as well. It takes a little bit of getting used to at first, but after wearing them for just a few times, you get used to having that extra material around the tongue. And then stitched onto that tongue, you're just gonna have that classic Adidas Samba label as well. You will notice in the lacing system here, they have one hole that's a little bit beneath all of the others. So if you do choose to feed your laces through that hole there, it's gonna give you a little bit more lockdown, and it's gonna pull both sides of the upper a little bit closer to your feet. Then moving on to the gum rubber outsole, it stayed pretty much the same since the boot's inception as well. It's a little bit less than an inch thick, and it stays roughly the same thickness all the way from the heel to the toe of the boot. The outsole is really rigid throughout the heel, as you would expect from most traditional football boots, and it has a little bit more flexibility throughout the toe box. As you can see, there's a lot of texture and patterning on the outsole as well, just to give the shoes a little bit more grip on those hard surfaces. And that's pretty much it for the outside of the boot. On the inside of the boot, you have an insole that is non-removable but has held up pretty well over time. And then you have some woven textile material that's also pretty comfortable and breathable for your feet. Now we've talked a little bit about the design, let's move on to the fit of the Sambas. So I was a little bit concerned when I first got these shoes because I thought that they appeared a little bit narrow when looking at them from the outside, but even as a player with wide feet, I actually found these shoes to be really comfortable. Granted, I have had a really long time to break these in, but I would typically wear a size 10.5 US in Nike and Adidas shoes, and these in a 10.5 fit me perfectly, so I would say if you are looking to get a pair, they do fit true to size. And as I mentioned, although the toe box does seem to taper slightly, I find that it still offers enough space for my toes, and I don't feel like I'm getting crushed at the front of the shoe. And when I first started wearing these shoes and playing in them regularly, I also didn't notice getting any blisters in either the front of the shoe or the heel. And the lockdown is also really great, as is the case with any shoe that has a traditional lacing system. Whenever I'm going to be playing in a game or if I'm going to a training session, I just make sure to tie the shoes relatively tight throughout the entire lacing system. And then if I'm just wearing them casually, I'll usually loosen them up considerably. If you're not used to wearing a shoe with a tongue that's this extended, it's probably going to take you a little bit to get used to, but after a few days, you'll hardly notice that it's there. Overall, they hold up pretty well at a competitive level when you are playing indoor soccer or indoor football, whatever you call it. And they also hold up pretty well if you're just wearing them casually. They don't feel too aggressive or tight or overly snug to your feet. They just feel like a casual everyday sneaker when you have the laces adjusted to be a little bit looser. And for that reason, I think that the fit of these shoes is just really versatile. So the next question would be, what about the durability of these shoes? How have they held up over time? Well, in my opinion, considering how much I've gotten the chance to actually wear these shoes and how many miles I've put them through, which is a lot, I think that they've held up pretty well. After wearing these shoes for over 4 years, the only noticeable damage I would say is towards the inside of the heel here, where you can see that the material has gotten a little bit scuffed and a few layers have been worn through. You can also see that the heel of this shoe has been put out of place as well, but the real reason for that is because I constantly put on these shoes without untying the laces, and I end up just scuffing the heel by putting them on in a lazy way. Despite getting some damage to the material just on the heel liner here, I don't really notice that when I'm wearing the shoes, and it doesn't really have any impact on the comfort. And then another area where I have noticed some wear and tear as well is just on the outsole here, especially towards the heel. You can see that a lot of that grip and texture has worn down here just by a few millimeters, and you can actually tell that it has made the sole here a little bit thinner than the rest of the shoe just because it's worn at the heel over time. But now that that's out of the way, let's talk about some of the good things about the durability on this shoe. First off, the sole separation, or should I say the lack of sole separation. When you look at these shoes, the suede and the leather towards the toe box and around the midfoot, it's still completely intact with the rubber outsole. Pretty much just the same as the day I got them. There's also been essentially no damage to the suede or leather itself. I don't notice any cracking other than just the light fading and dirt that's accumulated on the shoes. They're pretty much in the same condition as well since the day I got them. I think that pretty much just speaks to the quality of the materials that Adidas has continued to use in the construction of these shoes. But I'm just really happy because there's not that many shoes that I own that I can still comfortably wear after 4 years. So now let's talk about the playability of the Sambas and what they're actually like to use when you're outdoors or on a court. So for reference, when I'm playing in the Sambas, I'm usually going to be wearing them on the street, so on asphalt, or on a tennis court-like material. And I would say that the touch on the ball when you're wearing the Sambas is really similar to that of wearing a leather football boot. You get that really nice padded feel on the ball that you get with that natural leather construction. Overall, they feel really responsive and fun to play in. There's just a couple notes that I would have about areas that I would improve. First off, the lacing system is a little bit on the bulkier side. The laces are a little bit bigger than on most other shoes, and the fold over tongue is pretty long. So I feel like occasionally it's just not that minimal, and I wish there was just less going on throughout the centralized lacing system. And this would just give me a better feel when I was just juggling or kicking the ball with the top of my foot. Also, the gum sole here does feel pretty rigid, and in my opinion, I think it could actually be a little bit thinner, just because in its current state, it does feel a little bit on the bulkier side when you're trying to get quick turns in. That being said, the gum sole still does offer plenty of grip, especially after owning these boots for so long. So finally, would I actually recommend someone get a pair of the Adidas Sambas? Well, ultimately, I would say that depends on what you're looking for in your shoe. If you want a leather shoe that's comfortable, durable, and also good for casual settings, I would say you should go for it. And I also think that a $90 price tag for a shoe of this quality is actually a pretty fair deal as well. But if you're looking for something more modern, minimal, and light, something like the Nike React Gato might be more along the lines of what you want. Personally, I just think that they're a great shoe to have in your locker because not only are they nice for playing in, but they're also versatile and can be used for just wearing casually. So that pretty much does it for this video. Let me know if you have a pair of these classic shoes and what you think of them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.